You have to second guess if you can put your heating on.
I don't know how long the average working person is going to be able to take this.
We're always budgeting every week and every month, so it is a struggle.
Inflation hit 3% in January, higher than economists had expected. After the inflation shock a few years ago, prices had been coming down, but not anymore. Now 7 out of 11 food categories are climbing again. Meat, bread, milk, tea and coffee. And don't tell them here, but biscuits and chocolate too.
It's really tricky. It's so difficult to manage, to try and live, almost like a basic life, let alone even possibly think of a holiday. 3% is massive when you're just looking at nothing but increases.
Milk has gone up, eggs have gone up, butter. I mean, your basic essentials. I'm not talking about luxury items here. I just feel that it's just too much, and it is becoming unsustainable for a lot of people.
Every month when we get our money in, we have to literally just write a list of what we're going to spend money on. I just feel like it's constantly going up. I don't see a difference at all. I actually had to recently get rid of my car just because car insurance is going up, petrol is going up. It's painful.
On the ground, talk of wages finally rising faster than inflation doesn't persuade anyone.
For us, real people, our wages are not going up. And even if they go up, they don't counteract with the inflation prices that have gone up. So it's still not balancing out. I don't dwell on it, because if you dwell on it, then it's just going to get me down. So you just got to go with it, and you only live once.
The question is whether this is a bump in the road to recovery or something more worrying. The average energy bill in April is expected to go up again to more than £1,800. That'll leave bills almost 2/3 more than they were pre-crisis. But it's not just bills that are unaffordable, it's also housing. New figures show private rents were up 8.7% to an average of £1,300. In London, rent inflation hit 11%, while analysts say after housing costs, renters end up with an average of just £62 left, compared to those with mortgages who have £309. That matters because people who are priced out of buying could face sky-high rents for life. Stuart Hare is the boss of Skipton Group. How does he see the issues around housing?
The UK economy's in an interesting state just now. Interesting is a very British word, isn't it?
So what does it really mean, though?
It feels to me like it's a neutral.
Skipton's research looks at housing affordability for first-time buyers across the UK. Almost 90% of first-time buyers can't afford to buy a home in their local area. 6 out of 10 of the least affordable homes are in Wales, but the East Midlands and London also feature. In April, stamp duty changes means 32% of those taking the first steps on the property ladder will now be caught by tax rises compared to just 8% currently.
One of the challenges that's particular to Wales is while they don't have the most expensive housing stock, it's also not the cheapest, and they don't have the highest income levels. And so therefore the difference between the cost of the house and the ability to afford it is that much higher.
Stamp duty changes, bus fares going up and VAT on private schools are all political choices. But most inflationary pressure is global and outside the control of Westminster. What then does the government do when it has promised people here a better standard of living?
Well, earlier I spoke to Mohamed El-Erian, Chief Economic Advisor at Allianz, and I started by asking him whether rising costs is something we have to just accept.
So it's hard to live with it when the Bank of England has a 2% target and they are looking at 3% and they expect it to go all the way up to 3.7%. So from a policy perspective, it's hard to live with it, and it will mean that interest rates will not come down as fast as possible. For the average person, however, the good news for them is that their wages are growing even faster than inflation. So if you look at real purchasing power, how much we can buy after adjusting for higher prices, that's gone up by over 3% in the last 3 months.
Do you think people will feel that, though, given what they've lived through in the last 3 years?
Absolutely not. You know, there's something about inflation which is it robs you from your ability to buy things. So inflation remains something that has scarred quite a few people. Remember, inflation went to above 10% in 2022, and people are not going to forget that shock anytime soon.
What does this mean for Rachel Reeves? I mean, is inflation actually a bit of a relief for government debt?
So I don't think she would be happy about the numbers, even though it may have an impact in eroding some of the real value of the debt.
So is it net good or bad for her?
It's net bad. The one thing that policy is most afraid of is something called stagflation. The stag part refers to low growth or negative growth. Inflation refers to inflation. And in fact, there's something called the misery index that measures that.
Is there anything the government should be doing on affordability or could be doing that it's not?
So what the government should be doing is accelerate what it's already trying to do, which is promote economic growth. Growth is the answer to lots of things.
I mean, they keep talking about it, and actually the projections are going down, not up.
Yes, and it's a tough global environment we're living in. We're living with tariff threats. We're living with Germany in recession. It's a tough environment, and we haven't fully recovered yet in terms of our trade links.
I mean, we haven't been hit by tariffs yet. We might be. How much worse is that going to make things?
But that will make it a lot worse. Tariffs are the most stagflationary development. So they impact you both on the growth side. You're less able to sell to the rest of the world. They impact you on the inflation side, that you also end up importing, believe it or not, higher prices, because that's the way the mechanism works globally. So that will be problematic. Now, so far, the UK has not been targeted. I think the UK has been smarter than other countries in trying to preempt the tariff threat. But we don't want tariffs on top of all that's going on domestically already.
Mohamed El-Erian, thank you very much.
Thank you.